Spotlight is a production of CTNY, the Catholic Television Network of Youngstown. It seeks to spotlight people, places, and events from around the Diocese of Youngstown that promote the new gospel of joy called for by Pope Francis. Your program host is Father James Corda.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Spotlight. I'm Father Jim Corda. Today we're going to talk about the Knights of Columbus. And joining me is the chaplain for the state of Ohio, Father Bill Kraynak, and also the state deputy for Ohio, Kenneth Gert. And it's a pleasure to have you both on the show today.
Thanks for having us.
You know, it might be a good idea for the folks that are with us to get a flavor for the Knights of Columbus. I would imagine that most of the people that are listening are very familiar, but there might be a few that aren't. So let's kind of give a little history of the Knights of Columbus, if we could. Who would like to do that?
Okay.
If you'd like to go ahead.
The really history started back in 1882. There was a young parish priest at the Church of St. Mary's in New Haven, Connecticut, who, while serving his parishioners, had discovered that a lot of many wives and orphans widows I should say, not just wives, would come to him asking for help because their breadwinner had died on the job and they could not get life insurance. Back in that era, as Catholics were coming into this country, they found a lot of discrimination, a lot of hatred as far as employment. And so this priest took it upon himself. He wanted to change this. Also at the same time, I should mention that there were a lot of secret societies back then, which men would join. And a lot of them had belief in God, but not necessarily the same dogma as the Catholic Church. And this bothered Father McGivney, Father Michael McGivney. And so he said, well, if I can't beat them, we'll start our own fraternal secret society. So he got 29 men of his parish in the basement of the church in October of 1881, and he gave him this vision. I says, I want to start a fraternal benefit society. The first requirement to be a practicing Catholic. Second of all, we're going to start a fraternal benefits. We're going to be able to help our widows and children. And then the third is I want all our members to put our Catholic faith into action. And for the parish, for families, for the community. And they proceeded, and in 1882, March, it was decreed by the Connecticut legislature that a new fraternal benefit society would be initiated, and thus became the Knights of Columbus. Originally, Father McGivney wanted to use the Sons of Columbus, but the early Knights wanted that emphasize that we are the protectors, the guardians of our Catholic faith. So we used the knighthood, and it was part of our emblem as well. So,
what I find interesting is that so many things that we celebrate, and maybe in particular as Catholics, kind of grow out of some kind of need that we have. And so there was, as you had mentioned, Ken, this particular need that was going on at that time in the late 1800s, where the church kind of rose to the occasion. And Bill, in your experience with the Knights as the chaplain, how important has the practice and the celebration of the faith been for you personally, but also as you witnessed to the members of the Knights of the Columbus?
Well, going back to Father McGivney, he died soon after the establishment of the Knights of Columbus. And he has just recently been declared as being venerable according to the Vatican. And we are looking forward to the day where he may be accepted as a saint of the church. So it's been a great inspiration to me and my priesthood to work with these Knights of Columbus. One of the most fabulous experiences I had was to go to state conventions and then to go to a supreme convention, a national convention, and hear all these men participating and practicing their faith and living the faith in their daily lives and just really being the kind of people you want to have in your parish. They're just a great inspiration to me as a priest.
Let's talk about the role of Christopher Columbus. Obviously, he plays a role in this. And Ken, what is his role in the Knights?
Well, back in the late 1800s, it was still recognized that those that were of the Catholic faith were given their spiritual allegiance to our Pope in Rome. Typical Americans believe that we are the United States of America, no foreign power is going to tell us what to do, and here is a Catholic Church whose members are putting their allegiance to a ruler in another country. And that's where a lot of the discrimination came from. But I think over the years we sort of worked that out, and we're not as discriminated against like we used to be. But that was one of the problems of the early church here in the United States.
And I would think overcoming that discrimination is kind of an ongoing struggle for many people, even today. As we look at our society, how blessed we are in the United States, we still have those pockets of racism,
Yes.
those discriminatory comments or actions against other people of different faiths. So those are things that we really need to keep in mind as we practice and celebrate our own faith, in particular as Catholics, because we have a past that experienced that same thing. The one thing that I'd like us to talk about now, and we have about 4 minutes of our time together in our first segment, is to talk about the charitable works that the Knights of Columbus provide. And they do that for so many people. And briefly, let's talk about that. What has been your experience, Father Bill, about that?
On the local level, to see that the Knights of Columbus are very willing to help out their pastors. They want to work with him in what's called a roundtable format, where they have an opportunity to sit down with the pastor, find out what the needs of the parish is, and how they can fill that need, what they could do to help him as he is the spiritual leader of the parish, if there's any other things that he has to have done. Also, there are educational opportunities, scholarships that are available on the state level, and many of the councils help out students. They also help out seminarians and support their seminarians. They would love to do more in the area of vocations if they can, to encourage young men and women to consider a vocation to the priesthood or religious life, especially since this year is a year of the consecrated life for our church. Just wonderful things like that. On the national level, I think there's some wonderful programs that the national is working on and continue to work on. I think Ken, you can talk about more about what's going on with the nationals.
On the national level, the Knights of Columbus is a major sponsor for Special Olympics. We really, in some cases, have noticed that, or have been known that this is our flagship charity of the Knights of Columbus. Like the Moose may have the charitable, or the Children's Burn Unit, or other fraternal organizations have their specialized. We like to think those with developmental disabilities, and we do a lot of volunteer collections here in the state of Ohio, raising $350,000 to $450,000 every year in our Pennies for Measure Up campaign, where we stand in stores with the cups looking for donations.
We're going to talk more about that in a moment, but we're going to take a quick break. So please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Light Moments. Here's Father Tom McSweeney.
The popularity of self-help books suggests that many people want to improve themselves. According to psychiatrist Martin Groter, true change is difficult because it requires us to work hard at what is unfamiliar and uncomfortable. Dr. Broder offers the following suggestions. First, examine the behavior you want to change, analyze the obstacles, and devise a specific plan to overcome them. Second, don't make your resolutions too ambitious. Next, decide if you need assistance. Consider a self-help group or turn to your friends for support. And then give yourself regular reviews and learn from them. And finally, congratulate yourself for making the effort to improve. Change may not be easy, but the results are worth all the hard work.
This message from the Christophers.
Welcome back to our show. We're talking about the Knights of Columbus with Father Bill Kraynak and Kenneth Gert. What we would like to talk about now, if that's okay, is you mentioned vocations before we took a break. And how important is it for not only this organization, but I think any church organization nowadays to be about prayer and good works towards encouraging and fostering vocations?
I think it's a wonderful thing that the Knights of Columbus are doing, praying and every time they have a meeting for vocations to the priesthood and religious life. They also have a program called Pennies for Heaven, where they're collecting funds for vocation offices throughout our state of Ohio. I believe that was begun in Columbus, at the Diocese of Columbus level, and has been going on the last couple of years, doing fabulous work with our vocation offices, financially supporting them. But I think the encouragement that vocations that I've seen in parishes by the different councils has been phenomenal. They truly encourage and support these people, the young people, to really investigate their vocation, their calling to Christ.
You know, you're absolutely right. As I had mentioned before the taping, I'm the chaplain for the Austintown Knights of Columbus, and I know during different times of the year, they provide financial support and gifts to the seminarians. And I remember when we were in the seminary, I don't remember getting financial gifts outside of my parents. So getting something like that nowadays, I think, is so important, because it's not only a financial beneficial help, but it's also an encouragement to them that they know that there are people out there supporting their vocation. And in a time like this, where there's not that full support often, it's important to get that. Any other programs, Ken, in your mind, that help build up the faith that's so important for us as Catholics within local councils?
Well, Father Bill had mentioned the Pennies for Heaven, and we do that in every diocese. And then we give the money to the vocation director when we're on our summer state council tour around the state. We also, the Ohio Charity Foundation also provides at Christmas time a certain amount of money divided by how many seminarians are. So I think there was in the whole state of Ohio, 169 seminarians. I'm not sure of that total number, but each one was able to get a check for about $70, $75 at Christmas time to be used to buy things for their family when they went home for Christmas. We also, Supreme Council has a program called the RSVP for vocations. If a council donates $500 to Supreme Council, Supreme will take the money, issue a check for that seminarian, but then give $100 back to the council. So in essence, it only costs them $400. The seminarian is getting a check for $500. And this is for any council. They pretty much find a local seminarian, somebody from their parish, that they want to do this project for. So each year they could provide $500 for that seminarian.
Well, I think it's a wonderful thing to do, for sure. I noticed you have certain symbols that both of you are wearing. If you could each let us know what it is that you're wearing and what's the significance behind them. We'll start with you.
Well, what I'm wearing are the jewels of the state office. This is the jewel, they call it, of the state chaplain. It has the symbol of the state of Ohio and the symbol of the Knights of Columbus on that particular one. The lapel pin that I'm wearing is a 4th degree lapel pin. It has the Holy Spirit overtaking the world and with the American flag, because the 4th degree order is the order of patriotism. My other little button here is our state button, and the state button simply carries with it our logo for the year, what our motto for the 2-year term that our state deputy has. And Ken, why don't you tell them about that?
Okay. Each state deputy has a motto or logo for his 2 years. What he's trying to get the Knights, the 58,000 Knights of Columbus, to relate to and to be part of. And what I did, I came across Matthew's Gospel one Sunday in church, where Christ asks us to be the light of the world, and by your good deeds we show that we give honor and glory to God. And it dawned on me, well, that's what we are challenged by Father McGivney and by the Supreme Council to do charitable work, to do good things. So I put that in my motto, my slogan for the 2 years, the light of Ohio. We may be part of the larger light of the world, but here in Ohio, the Knights of Columbus can think of themselves as being a light of the world here in Ohio. So I did the light of Ohio, and I structured my program after many of the good projects and charitable activities that we're encouraging our members to do.
And tell us about your lapel pins and also your medallion as well.
Well, the lapel pin is my logo.
Very good.
The other one is the state officers each have one of these, the shape of Ohio, and there is a stone on this one. That's transferred to, as we move up the ladders of our offices, we give the pin to the next state officer that takes over. The jewel is the state deputy pin. In the middle of it, it is the state of Ohio. So all jurisdictions, state deputies will have a medal that pertains to their jurisdiction. And I say jurisdictions because there are not only Knights of Columbus councils in every 50 states, there's one in every province of Canada. We're in Mexico. In fact, Mexico, I believe, is currently in 3 different jurisdictions, and each one has its own state deputy. We're in 2, I believe, jurisdictions in the Philippines. We're in Guam, we're Puerto Rico. We recently, a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago, started a state council in the country of Poland. So, and recently, in the last 2 years, we started Knights of Columbus councils in the Ukraine and Lithuania. Thank you very much. And just last year, we announced that we're starting a Knights of Columbus in South Korea. So we are moving around the world. We may not be, not everybody knows about Christopher Columbus and the idea that Christopher Columbus brought Catholic faith to this country, but they're members of the Knights of Columbus. And
well, it's good to know that history, because I think it's almost like missionary effort to kind of bring the faith to the ends of the earth, really, when you think about it. And I think it's wonderful that this is part of the mission and the ministry and the purpose of the Knights of Columbus. We're going to talk a little bit more about some other aspects of the organization, but we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
I spent 34 years as a teacher.
For the first 10 minutes of teaching, I was terrified, and then I fell in love with it.
I am so grateful that teaching was my ministry. It was such a gift.
Many sisters, brothers, and religious order priests served for little pay.
One year, I had a classroom of 68 children.
I was chaplain for the ice hockey team and loved it, even the 6:30 a.m. practices.
Today, hundreds of religious communities lack retirement funds.
I loved helping the kids stage musicals.
Gifts to the Retirement Fund for Religious help provide for medications, nursing care, and more.
Back then, we didn't earn much, but seeing a child learn was really priceless.
Please give to those who have given a lifetime. Donate at your local parish.
Thank you, and God bless you.
Doesn't your child deserve the best education possible? Then you should consider a Catholic school where strong academics are offered in a safe, disciplined environment, where education is deeply rooted in the religious teachings of our Catholic faith, where graduation rates are exceptional, where outstanding teachers help your child reach his or her fullest potential in the classroom and in life. But you should consider a Catholic school for the most important reason of all. Your child is worth it.
Hello, welcome back to Spotlight. I'm talking with Kenneth Gert and also Father Bill Kraynak from the Knights of Columbus. I think what I'd like us to do is to talk about the degrees. We know that there are various degrees within the organization of the Knights of Columbus. And so maybe, Ken, you can give us a little background and appreciation of those different degrees.
There are 3 basic degrees of the Knights of Columbus. All 4 degrees really stand for our principles: charity, unity, patriotism. Charity, unity, fraternity, and the fourth one is patriotism. Now, we're not required to join the fourth degree, but it is encouraged. So the patriotic arm of the Knights of Columbus is the fourth degree, but we ask everybody to go through 3 steps to become a Knight of Columbus. The first one concentrates on, that's your entry into the Knights of Columbus. It's all about charity, the lesson of charity. Number 2 is the lesson on unity. And the third degree, the knighthood degree, is the on fraternity. And actually all 3 degrees, well, the third degree has been changed in the last couple of years, but all three degrees originally were developed by Father McGivney. He wanted everybody to know what the purpose of the Knights of Columbus, so what better than the founder to establish the purpose and needs of each of the degrees.
I'd like to go
the
ahead.
way
You had something.
the degrees themselves are used are more of a catechetical tool than anything else. While the man is going through the initiation for each one of the degrees, each one of them has a catechetical aspect to them to help that man to grow in his faith. And one of the things that the first degree gives you a rosary and invites you to pray that rosary each and every day, to be a man of prayer. That's the most important thing a Knight of Columbus can do, is to be a man of prayer. I think that's a wonderful attribute to have with any person.
Yeah. The other thing I'd like us to talk about, and maybe Father Bill, you could expound on this a little bit. You had mentioned that Father McGivney was declared venerable. So we know in the church that that's kind of on the road to being beatified and then eventually canonized. In your experience, what does it mean to the Knights of Columbus to have their founder recognized for the wonderful work that they've begun and that continues throughout the ages?
I think the Knights of Columbus have always had a very good relationship with the Church Universal, and especially with the Vatican, with the Pope. They have always worked well with the Pope. They've been very close with St. John Paul II, and they're very happy that their founder is being considered for sainthood. The inspiration that priest of a parish gave to those men that he met with was very important. And the inspiration that any priest in any parish can give to the men of his council in his parish is very important. So they really have a very good relationship.
I think we might be remiss if we didn't mention that the wives somehow play some role within this, because obviously many of the Knights of Columbus lay members are married. So Ken, in your experience, what role does the wife play, if any, within the organization?
Probably a supporting role, okay, to encourage their husbands to be involved with Knights of Columbus activities. I always think about that couch potato sitting or watching television every night, and the wife said, "Why don't you go do something good? Go down the night, join the Knights of Columbus," and they're doing activities. They're Habitat for Humanity, or they may be doing a coach for kids or something like that. She knows what the Knights of Columbus is all about, and for the spiritual as well. So we do get the support. We have a lot of ladies auxiliary that belong to the Knights of Columbus. So they are a big part, and the family as well.
That's good. Let's also talk, and we mentioned it initially in our conversation about the insurance program, because that's a significant part of the Knights of Columbus. Can you explain briefly about that, Ken?
The Knights of Columbus insurance has grown to over 94 billion in force. In fact, we are recognized as one of the top insurance companies in the country. We only sell insurance to our members. We're still recognized as one of the top insurance companies in the order. In fact, recently Ethisphere magazine has rated the Knights of Columbus Insurance Program as the most ethical group in the world. And just by what we do with our money that we get from the insurance policy.
Well, I think it's guided by principles that you live on a daily basis, not just when you gather for your meetings, but on a daily basis, and that obviously is evident within that. Yes. In your experience as chaplain of the Knights of Columbus, what has been the greatest joy that you have experienced ministering to them, but then what do you think that they have gotten from you?
Well, I've been with the Knights of Columbus since I was 18 years old. My father told us, all of his boys, you are going to join the Knights of Columbus. And I think for quite a bit, my vocation is responsible from the Knights of Columbus, because my father came home from a meeting one day and he said, we are now going to pray. And I was like, whoa, this must be important. You know, from then on in, we said grace before every meal, and grew up in the faith, grew up in the Knights of Columbus, participating in council activities whenever family was drawn together, and family participated in all these parties and socials, picnics, whatever they were going on with the Knights of Columbus. And then when I became ordained to the priesthood, my first parish back in 1981, I was involved in the council in Salem, Ohio. Met many wonderful families there, and that's the thing about the Knights of Columbus. It's family-oriented. It's not just for men, it's for families, and they do many activities for families. So all through my priesthood, there have been wonderful councils that have worked with me and helped me in my priesthood. I really do appreciate them very much.
Well, unfortunately, we are out of time, but it was a pleasure to have you, Kenneth Gert and Father Bill Kraynak, to share more information about the Knights of Columbus, especially here in the state of Ohio, but here locally in the Diocese of Youngstown. We hope that continues to be a source of blessing for many men and many families in our diocese and across the world, hopefully. And we say God bless you for the wonderful work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for being with us. Have a good day, and God be with you.
Spotlight has been a production of CTNY, the Catholic Television Network of Youngstown. Your program host was Father James Corda.
Church World Service believes that being self-reliant is a joy everyone should share. So around the block or around the world, share the joy.